Hi. First of all, I would like to thank you and Brett for that beautiful, deeply moving film.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to thank the audience for coming. It means a lot to support Indigenous cinema and Two-Spirit love stories. Absolutely adored it.
Absolutely. We premiered this film in 2021, peak, pandemic viewing. So it's still such a treat to see this film with an audience and to have people seeing it in theaters. Hi, Brett.
Okay. I heard you were going to be here behind me. Oh, we can't hear.
You're on mute.
That's my fault. Yeah,
okay.
That's my fault. Sorry.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you see us?
I can see you. That's it. Just seeing here.
Okay, great. I am curious to what prompted you both to want to tell the story, and if there were any specific issues or life experiences that you were wanting to explore or responding to.
Yeah, so I was working on the script for 9 or 10 years, I think, before we went to camera, and it's something that I kind of worked on by myself. And then after having conversations with family and friends and community members, specifically, kind of like looking at things through the lens of there are not a lot of Two-Spirit films, at least at the time there weren't. There were some documentaries and there was Fire Song. So that was kind of a big, for me, personal goal to be able to tell this story and to show this relationship and these people that are at different stages and different paths in their life and figuring out who they are and who they are to each other, without kind of reducing it or making it too easy or too sugar coated or too dark. So kind of just being with people, with these young people, as they're on this journey.
Amazing. Was it coming from personal experiences?
Some of it is very personal, and some of it are I think experiences that other Two-Spirit people or that other queer people can identify with. But there's a healthy mix of things in there.
And how did you become involved as the producer?
I became involved through the lead producer, Garrett Pon. Garrett and myself were both mentored by the executive producer, Damon de Oliveira, and Damon sort of paired us together and got us all working on this project. And I'd been working for Damon, and I'd read this script in several drafts and was always just so taken with the honesty of it and the rawness of what the characters are going through. And yeah, it just always felt like such a beautiful story to me. And then at the beginning of coming onto the project, I was pregnant, and by the time we shot, I had a 1-year-old. So I was starting to, understand a little bit about motherhood, and through editing the film, I had a lot of reflections about that, about what Link was going through and what his mom must have been going through to make the choices that she did. So yeah, it spoke to me on a personal level, and I just really loved all of the people that were involved to collaborate with.
Yeah, I think that the actors did an amazing job. And I was curious to know, had they had like acting experience before? Were they just kind of, a few shorts or feature before?
Brett, do you want to speak?
They did have some experience. I think they're starting out their careers, so they had different levels of experience. Um, Avery, who plays Travis, the little brother, was in the original short that we did called Wildfire. And back then he actually was, I think, 10. By the time we shot this, he was 13, but he was a small guy at the time, and we just asked him to stop growing until we were done filming. So he kind of came in as a natural. They all had this amazing chemistry together. I think that when you're doing a film like this, that's kind of what will carry you through, is if the characters, the actors are really those characters for the duration of the journey at least, and we're there with them and we feel what they feel, and we feel that there is, this brotherly bond between Link and Travis, that's very like typical sibling dynamic. And then there we feel like this like little spark of something between Buzzamai and Link. So that's all, that chemistry and those bonds. And I just kind of like either fanned the embers or got out of the way.
Well, they did an amazing job, and you did as well. I want to turn attention to the use of the Mi'kmaq language in the film. What was the writing process like to dive into Mi'kmaq? And then I noticed that some of they would say a little bit of the language, and then they would say it in English. How was it to kind of write that?
Um, I'm not fluent. I'm a learner, so I'm still in the process of learning. I'll be learning all my life. So I rely on the help of John R. Syllaboy, who was helping actually with the dialect and the pronunciation with our actors, but also Tom and Carolyn Johnson and Eskasoni, who made a whole Mi'kmaq language dub of the film, which is incredible. But the writing process of using the language. I think at first we had a couple discussions about this, like production team discussions. I was like, we'll have no subtitles at all. And the producers were all pretty chill about that. But then when I was talking to um, community, not everyone, like I'm an example, it can speak the language or is fluent. So, in an effort to be inclusive to people, there are subtitles under a lot of it, and then the other way is the Mi'kmaq language, and then there's the English part, which is just a teaching way. So that's just a natural way of doing it. So that just kind of fit in there. And then there's one or two spots where there's no translation, and that's just for people, for fluent speakers. They'll understand those parts. They'll have a different nuance and meaning to those parts. So the secret message is go learn Mi'kmaq.
Walalan?
Well, yeah.
Will ya? Oh, I was trying to say
Well, yeah.
thank you. I was learning
Yeah,
from
it's
the
all
movie. What challenges did you face in writing the script? Was it more to do with finding fluent speakers in your community?
Um, no, I think in the script I might have had some words that I know I put in. And then when it came to the part with Elder Becky Julian, towards the end, when they go to the elder's house, I kind of had English and she just made it her own in the language. And like you can't really direct an elder. Um, but she just did it perfectly. Like she obviously knows what she's doing, and she has all this experience, and she's just amazing. So very fortunate. I suppose that comes down to casting too. Just find amazing people that speak the language.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, it was pretty incredible to be able to do a full language dub of the film, which is was, I think it was, you know, a funder requirement that we were able to do in the language instead of French, which is the way it's normally done. But yeah, we worked with this awesome couple that Brett knows that had, I think, just done a dub of Chicken Run for fun. And so they knew how to do it, and we were like, "Can you help us?" But yeah, that was really special, and we screened that version of the film at Fin Atlantic, the festival in Halifax, and I think that was yeah, it was so wonderful to be able to share that.
Amazing. I had a question around the community engagement for the film. So, what steps were taken to engage the Indigenous communities throughout production?
Brett, why don't you speak to that, being the
Sure.
production person on the ground?
Yeah, the basically through every stage, community was involved in different capacities. So through development, I mean, there's like 9 or 10 years of discussions and conversations with many different people that went into it. When we went into production, we were hiring trainees from community to work on the film behind the camera, but we're also casting community to be in front of the camera. One of the performers, Des, is in the convenience store scene and kind of cusses Link out. Like that is Des. Like that's, you know, that was a great collaboration, a very natural collaboration. And Elder Becky and actually some of the kids at the end in the basketball court are the original Link and Buzz in the short film. So we're able to kind of keep community involved and included. Um, Also, the family members at the end when they're like having the big dinner, like those are community people. So we kind of made a big effort to be casting from community as well. And then we also had John Arstillboy, who is in the film, who is Mother Mary at the Tiger Lily, who is also our language and Two-Spirit consultant, and is or at the time was the executive director of the Wabanagi Two-Spirit Alliance. And then and going through editing, we would be showing like the cut to different people, community people, and getting feedback at different stages. Not every stage, because you want some people to be fresher at certain points. So like they don't get caught up on things that they've seen, and maybe they're seeing a certain cut for the first time. All the way up until, you know, doing the language dub and then sharing it with so many people. The full Mi'kmaq language version was packed. It was sold out, and it was a very incredible experience. I can catch a word or two, but watching when people are happy and laughing and responding, and in different ways than the English version of the film, like that, it was incredible.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, you know, I worked on this film from Toronto. By the time we got into production, it was the middle of the pandemic. We were like one of the first films to go into production after the shutdown, and we were like literally weeks out from washing our groceries when they came home from the grocery store. So when I started collaborating on this film, the most was in the post-production and was in the editing process. And I'm kind of going off a tangent, but just remembering that time. But yeah, there's something really special. Like I'm not an Indigenous person, but there's something really special about having done a project like this. And I worked on a Tibetan language film, which was concerning, kind of the plight of exiled Tibetans, among other things. And being a part of a process where I can learn so much through making the film and through the conversations and through even through simple things like, we'll have a conversation about a scene in the edit and maybe I have a note on something and I can learn something deeper about Brett's experience through that conversation, and maybe my note is just like all wrong. And a lot of the experiences of Indigenous people in this country, like I'm just beginning to learn about as an adult. And from my generation, we were not educated about, residential schools. I learned about that from a memoir, like from art. So I think for me, yeah, just like as to learn about other cultures has been a really special way of doing that through making the films, and then to be able to offer like exposure to filmmaking in a professional capacity, and just allowing people to discover how they might tell their own stories. I think John is working on his own film at this point. Is that right, Brett?
Yeah, John has written a feature and that's kind of being developed, but is getting ready to make a short.
Yeah, which is just incredible. So, anyways,
Who
it's
is
all
John
nice.
again?
John Sillaboy was our cultural community consultant, and is the president of the Wabanaki Two Spirit Alliance, or certainly the leader in
Yeah.
whatever capacity, and played Mother Mary in the film, and is just a fantastic human.
I'd like to open up to the audience if you have any questions. Oh, we have a hand over there.
Hi, beautiful film. I just loved the aesthetic and the sort of visual language that you crafted in the film. Can you talk a little bit about your cinematography and how you worked with Guy Godfrey and sort of how you developed the visuals of the film?
Sure, yeah. Guy is incredible. Super talented, super lovely person to work with, is just, totally there, totally into it, very, very respectful and has an open heart. When we went into this, we talked about how the camera kind of would be in the scene or moving around, and we kind of took it's kind of slightly doc stylish. Like the camera is always there, and it kind of picks up on the vibe and the feeling of what's happening in the scene. So what we would do, we had a shot list, and I storyboarded out some of the more tricky scenes like the waterfall. Um, and we would go into the space and say, what does the space give us? Like, what is this area, this land? What is it giving? Uh, like, how can we move in it, like, and have a relationship with it? And then Guy would say, I think it's this and this and this. And then I would say, I agree, but also, from over here. And then if there's time, drone. No, there's never time for drones. But it was kind of like crafting it one step at a time, and being very sensitive to what the chemistry between the actors was. There was also a very funny thing where I leave a lot of time before um, I call action, just when the camera's rolling, because I want to capture these little moments before things begin. And I give a lot of space at the end too, so I can capture little moments kind of at the end before we cut. So I was doing that, but then I found out halfway through, I think that Guy was also doing that. So we had like extra time at top and tail of all these shots. And then I think maybe it was the first or second day, um, we are talking about like, well, maybe we should stop and get this shot or get that shot. And I think this drove the AD crazy. But Guy, it was just kind of like if Guy sees something, I was like, go for it, right? You know, he's very in tune to the scene with the camera. So it was probably 99% of the time I just was watching him without giving like stopping and starting everything, that he's finding these little moments or these little snippets or these little like frames of these beautiful things happening between the characters, or adjustments that was just like great, this is all, you know, it's a wealth of amazing material.
Thank you for that question. Is there another question from the audience? And then we have one down here as well.
I really enjoyed the film. I was wondering where it was actually filmed as far as the railroad scene, all the greenery, the waterfalls. Is it Ontario?
No, that's Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay. It was beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, we usually only get to film on the coasts and in urban-ish areas. So, but there's a lot of forest and beautiful, beautiful places.
Thank you. There was a question down here.
Hi, it's more a comment. When the three of them run into the water, the music was just so glorious. And again, when they run into the fields, it is just exuberant. Who did the music?
That was Neil Haverty, who is a wonderful Toronto-based composer. And yeah, thank you for the comment. I agree.
And one more thing, the subtitles, like I loved it when you left them out at places, because you could sense it, you could feel what they were saying, just like in opera. You know, I don't like the subtitles, because if they are good enough in their singing, you get the emotion, you get what they're saying. So I love that. And a question with that is, where I'm from, when you, in India, when you speak a language, it's seeped with English. Is that how it is? Because that's the sense I got from the communities that spoke the language. Is it, or was it just in the film, it was conveyed that way?
You mean is English intermixed in with Mi'kmaq?
Yes.
It depends on the generation of the person you're speaking with.
Right, the community you filmed for this.
Yes, yeah.
That's the norm. That's the norm. Okay,
yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
It's English and Mi'kmaq, and a lot of French words from 400 years ago mixed into the language.
Thank you.
The scene with Elder Becky, where she's speaking Mi'kmaq and English, I think in the scene she understands that Link is not a fluent speaker, so she's saying things in Mi'kmaq and then she's repeating them in English. So, and those were the places where we didn't have subtitles, because the English that she speaks immediately after is kind of a direct translation. Yeah.
Great. There's another question over here.
Yeah, I like the way you approach the language with the different techniques. And the film was pretty perfect from my point of view, but I wanted to just ask, looking back, like, is there anything that you wish you could have done with it that you weren't able to?
There was a couple of times when we had extra time, which sounds like a fictional thing in a movie set, where we were able to just kind of like drive and find these places and let them wander. Like I think at one point they're walking on railroad ties like halfway through and they're trying to do loon calls. That was just like we had some time in between this and that, or like 30 minutes at the end of the day, and it was let's just let them be in character and be in a space and see what comes out of it. And I would have loved to have, the luxury of exploring more of those off the cuff things. Um, and we did a couple more, but like they didn't really fit into the shape of the story after we kind of got into editing. And there's a lot of really great stuff that we didn't end up using, which is I think they call that a champagne problem.
Okay, so we'll go here and then here.
I just wanted to ask about the club named Tiger Lilies. I've spent some time in Halifax, so I recognize that as a Seahorse Tavern. But I wondered what sort of club that was meant to be, whether it was meant to be a strip club or something like that, because I think there are no strip clubs in Nova Scotia. Is that right?
I don't know about all of Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I would say there used to be one. I think it is not around anymore, but it wasn't intended to be a strip club. It's just kind of an underground two-spirit bar.
Okay.
Like a place where like all, two-spirit, indigiqueer, LGBTQ people are welcome. It in my younger years used to be called Hell. And it's kind of where underground bands would play or punk bands would play. But yes, we totally repurposed that and put it like a neon sign up.
Lovely.
Right here.
I was wondering if you could talk more about your writing process. How much of it is kind of happening as you're filming and working with the actors, and how much of it had you scripted beforehand?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what the ratio is exactly now, but I can kind of walk you through the process or the evolution of it. So I wrote the script. We after we cast and brought the actors on and started workshopping things, they were doing these amazing things in the rehearsals that I just wrote down. And I was like, okay, we'll put that in. Like these are things, these explorations and workshops are better than what I can write, and they're kind of taking the character and sinking into the character and showing me things that I didn't know were there and improving the scenes. So those things made it in, a lot of them made it into the film. And then there was just kind of stuff on the day that they might do that was like ad-libbed or off the cuff or unexpected reactions. And it's like, okay, well, that was great. And it's one of those magic moments that happens sometimes. And then you try to hope that that happens as many times as possible. And then there was also, I guess my approach to things with the dialogue is I'm not precious about it. I want the actors to make it their own through their experiences of this, the character. So when I wasn't there after every take being like, we have to do it again because you said, this, not that, or whatever. Oftentimes things would change, dialogue would change, and it just felt more natural in the moment to the actors, and you feel that. And so I'd say roll with it.
And then also, like, there were a lot of scenes that we had in the script that didn't make it into the film that were still shot. I think that's probably one of the biggest changes from script stage to what is in the final edit. And yeah, I think they were, we had like some storylines that just, it's like the movie didn't want them. And they were, in the end, I don't know how you feel about it, Brett, but like maybe were just an exercise to understand certain characters better, but weren't actually needed when we put together the film because we felt those things in other ways.
Yeah, those scenes. I mean, it's always hard to cut stuff, but those scenes, I think, filming them and getting to those emotional places for the actors, that really helped the scenes that we do see that made it to the screen. So it's interesting, like you say, that the film didn't really want them. Didn't It kind of ended up not really needing those particular things, but it helped so much, I think, in the performances and just rounding out those characters. Um, Often one way I work too is I'll write some dialogue and then in editing I'll drop all the dialogue out of scenes. And you're just left with the vibes and the feelings and the tensions and things like that. So I see it kind of like that on a larger scale. Champagne problems.
Well, it's better to have a lot of footage and not enough.
Totally.
So I guess we'll take one more question, or are there many questions? One right there.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really loved the film and the feeling that it communicated. And I think when you're talking about having to drop some words, wisely so, because the nature and the strength from the nature itself was really connecting people. I noticed on the young man's shirt, it said, "Water is sacred." And as they jumped in the water and as they played in the water, the strength and the feeling of connectedness was really terrific. And the quiet strength, the nature, also helps you to see the quiet strength in the elders that were in the film and their goodness. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Oh, well, Alan, thank you.
Yeah, I think the granny elder was my favorite character. The way she moved, it was so meditative.
She's very special, and thank you for that comment. I think that was very much something on Brett's mind, like the land was a character in the film.
At one point, I think we were talking about we could shoot this somewhere else and like entertain that idea for maybe 5 or 10 minutes before coming to the conclusion that very much for the reasons that I can't really see the audience, but the reason that was just brought up about the land being a part of it, the water being part of it. The land has shaped language and culture and the people for time immemorial. It's part of this story. It's part of culture, and it will continue to be moving forward. So it's a very important and integral part of the story, and I'm glad that someone brought it up and sees that.
Yes, thank you for that comment. So I have one last question, and it's, what's next? What are you working on?
Brett.
Sorry, I get a little bit of lag sometime. What was it?
What are you working on? What's next for you?
Oh, I'm currently getting things together for a film next year. That is also takes place in the woods, and is kind of it's about two estranged siblings, Unuk, Mi'kmaq, siblings that have not seen each other for 20 years, and this thing happens, this supernatural thing that kind of begins to threaten them, and they come together to voyage to the heart of this forest that's this kind of like a forbidden place, or a place where people do not go. It's called Skidegamujoagig Gisna Skidegamujoegidi, which means, the place of ghosts, or at the place of ghosts. Sort of also a road movie, but instead of through place, it's through time, because this forest has different periods of time that intersect and overlap of history, pre-contact, during contact, the Beaver Wars, the Acadian expulsion, and kind of more recent history of the characters' younger selves. So they kind of become closer together the nearer their goal to they get to, until they are able to kind of relive this memory and this trauma and begin to address it themselves and start to heal and bring their family back together. Yeah, it's a little weird.
I like the supernatural, and it's spooky season. And yourself?
Perfect.
I'm working on so many things. My next film is actually set in a Toronto Public Library. It's based on a book written by Martha Bailey, who is a Toronto author and has worked in the public libraries for many years. So hopefully that will come out sometime in 2024. We're just finishing up post.
Very
Nice.
cool. I feel like working at the library is a hard job.
It's a very interesting place. Libraries are fascinating.
Well, I'd like to thank yourself and Brett for joining in this Q&A. It's always a pleasure to hear artists talk about their work, and I'm so happy that you all made it out tonight to see their art and, yeah, continue to support our artists. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone
Lovely.
for coming. Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to everybody here. I'll start here. Ani Bojo, Zaria and Disney-Cause. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zaria Nelson. I'm a student here at Cinema Studies Institute, as well as an Indigenous student in the program. I want to extend my gratitude to all those involved in the film, as well as everyone here who shared the great honor with me to watch this film and experience it in a theater. The story of Wildhood is one that doesn't stop when the credits roll. It's one that the characters, they live on within us. I want to say thank you to everyone who was involved in this film. Thank you to this story. It means so much to people, including myself. Yeah, thank you again to Brett. Thank you again to Julie. And I appreciate this happening here right now in this space. Chimigwech, and everyone have a great evening. Thank you.